the Hudson Bay could get pemmican. And of course the Métis said, no, we're not going to follow that. We're not going to do that. We'll provide it to whomever we want. And that Northwest Company asked Cuthbert Grant in 1816, they said, we've got to get all of this pemmican downriver. We need to get it down to Lake Winnipeg. Can you take it for us? Will you transport that for us? And he said, yes, I will. And you know, they were saying, we are a nation. And the Northwest Company said, you know, if you're a nation with your own culture, your own language, identity, you should have a flag. And they gave the Métis people a flag. It was on a red background with a white infinity sign. That infinity sign is like this one, representing two nations that have come together forever, and that the Métis nation will exist forever. And so they had this flag and they flew it proudly, and downriver they went. But because of flooding, the rivers were really high, and they were forced to go past the Hudson Bay Company, this Fort Douglas. And so they were trying to stay low, and they were trying to get by really quickly. They didn't want any trouble. But Governor Semple was at the fort, and he happened to be up on the wall with his spyglass, looking. What does he see? He sees Cuthbert Grant coming along, and he's livid. He's angry. They're violating this pemmican proclamation. And so, at Frog Plains, the Métis say it was at Frog Plains. The settlers say it was the Battle of Seven Oaks. We're going to go with Frog Plains. We're going to go with Frog Plains. We don't have to always go with these colonized mentalities, these viewpoints of our stories. So there's Cuthbert Grant coming along, and at Frog Plains, Governor Semple comes with 24 Hudson Bay Company traders. They come along, and they confront Cuthbert Grant. They get into this big argument, and one of Cuthbert Grant's generals, one of his leaders is out there, this Mr. Boucher, and Boucher is arguing with Semple. Semple pulls a gun on him, fires. Doesn't kill him, but he fires, and of course that's it. A battle breaks out. They start firing at each other. But in those days, they had muzzle loaders. Muzzle loaders were where you had to take your shot and some cloth and your gunpowder, and you had to pack it all down. It took a while to do that. So as soon as you fired a shot, you had to reload. Well, the Hudson Bay Company people were not hunters. They weren't warriors. These Métis people were. And so the Hudson Bay Company people stood there, packing their guns. The Métis people fired and fell back into the long grass so that you couldn't see them anymore. And while they lay in the grass, that's where they reloaded their guns. But the Hudson Bay Company traders weren't fighters. They weren't warriors. So they didn't know what happened. So they fought. They'd shot and killed all the Métis. So they came out of hiding. They came out of hiding, whooping and cheering and all this stuff. And the Métis simply got up and shot them. That battle lasted 15 minutes. 15 minutes from start to finish. And of course the Métis won. Governor Semple was killed in that battle. And of course the Hudson Bay Company wanted to charge the Métis people with murder, you know, with this attack on their fort, on their people and stuff. But there were witnesses there. Witnesses who said it was Governor Semple who started this battle, that it was him who charged out and attacked the Métis people. It was him who fired the first shot. And so the Métis were exonerated. They were exonerated. But from that battle in 1816, waving that flag, that battle cemented this idea that the Métis were truly a nation with their own culture, with their own language, with their own identity, separate from the other ones. They were people onto themselves. And so that's where our Métis nation kind of took off here in Canada, in that birthplace of the Métis nation, in that Red River area. And Cuthbert Grant is seen as our first Métis hero because he understood what it was to be Métis, to be a part of this nation. And so I wanted to share that with you because we're not just mixed blood people. We are people with our own culture, our own language, our own identity. And from that birthplace in the Red River area, oftentimes we hear people do a land acknowledgement and they will say, Treaty 6 territory, we honor Treaty 6 territory or Treaty 4 or whatever territory you're in, ran the homeland of the Métis. Well, what is the homeland of the Métis? Well, it starts in Red River. That's our birthplace. But it extends wherever kind of the fur trade went, into Ontario, across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, into northern British Columbia, up into the Northwest Territories, down into the States, into Montana and North Dakota. That's the homeland of the Métis people. And the Métis people always had to fight for what they got. And so you wonder, how is it that the Métis can claim that as their homeland when it's treaty territories? And it's because the Métis people joined into alliances. They joined into alliances with those First Nations people, creating political and military ties, creating family ties, making those connections. There was an iron alliance called the Naheo-Quack, which was between the Dakota, the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Ojibwe, Nakota, and the Métis. You know, building these alliances so that you can occupy that land and have these treaties that existed long before these number of treaties came onto our land. There were already treaties between the different groups and alliances built on political, military, and family ties. So I wanted to share that story with you. But now that we're talking about